Finally, the Chinese rats broke through and hid themselves within the stinking 1,000-year-old moats, where mutated tadpoles and sick worms died and filled them with a thick yellow foaming juice. Long dead skeletons of a defeated Nipponese army, entwined with caustic roots, melted into a foul-smelling black goo that crawled its way down into the gouged crevices and smoking green sulfur lakes that steamed and hissed. The grind of gnashing Chinese rat teeth echoed out of the giant sulphurous caves, where long red moss hung like ancient beards, always drenched in steaming sulfur juice. Lightning sliced its way between gas clouds and entered the poisonous bog, just as the ape-bear and his legion of gals stuck their heads out from behind massive burnt flint boulders that sat atop the frozen dirt mounds which encircled the system of moats. The gals screwed bayonets onto their rifles as the smell of gunpowder and blood drifted down the slope like a parachute towing a large sack of rocks. The grating and scratching sounds of the Chinese rats rose hauntingly from the smoke and stink of the moats below. Green fog churned and billowed everywhere. The ape-bear's boots were planted where his coffee had just spilled onto the soft, stinking mud. Some of the gals were pissing behind thorn trees, while others ate cashews and peanuts. Suddenly, the sound of the ape-bear's whistle filled the dank air, and the legion of gals began to slowly descend into the stinking and smoking maze of moats below them. As they approached, a foul-smelling bluish snow started to land upon their sweating bodies, now silhouetted against yellow chlorine gas clouds that rolled and hissed all around. Suddenly, blood flew as a Chinese whirling mine exploded in their midst. But no one stopped moving forward through the stinking ooze and sludge. Hands and legs flew apart. Brains and bones turned to soot. Fresh flesh and tendons ripped. Shattered muscles and nerves were burning on the stinking ground. Intestines swept stomach juice that flowed with a roar into the moat. Sickening protoplasm drifted on the hissing brown wave as the death cow was milked dry. The burning grease of death flamed up and smoked, but still the legion of gals pressed on unshaken. Finally, they reached a small island lined with fingering trees and high grass. And on its mushy surface of spongy peat moss and mud, an army of poisonous oak toads slept. Upon spotting this island, the ape bear yelled out a ferocious scream. And the legion of gals hobbled forward onto the island. Their wounded slung over their shoulders. They sat down on the soft ground where the toads were waiting for them with morphine and ether. The oat toads cheered.
Hail, hail, bury the dead, bandage the wounded. There's hot soup and biscuits under the big green tent. Brace up! Tomorrow we'll flush out those stinking Chinese rats from their shitholes amongst the smoking moats and chop them up one by one, 2 by 2, 2 by 4,
spoke the chief toad. With that said, the legion of gals, the ape bear, and all the poisonous oak toads rolled out their blankets and slept on the soggy island, shrouded by orange moat gas and chlorine clouds. the army woke up in the wet green air as striped bugs jumped out from underneath stinking clods of moss and goo. Into the flowing moats they flew. Soon, the final battle against the Chinese rats would begin. Suddenly, a flugelhorn sounded, and the army of 4,000 toads and gals waded out across the gray, shallow waters of the moats and stinking sulfur lakes. All was quiet, except for the boiling burps from the bubbling yellow mud near the sides of the moat and the slow sloshing of the growls through the waist-deep gook and putrid blue fog. Soon the sounds and smells of the Chinese rat caves were upon them. The ape-bear signaled with his arm, and the army stopped, shrouded in red sulfur steam. Suddenly the sounds of the rats ceased, and all was dead still. A flugelhorn blew, and the army charged towards the stink of the caves with bayonets and axes, as a bluish cloud of chlorine gas streamed out at them. The rats were screaming and gnashing their teeth. The gals tossed wads of dynamite straight into their chattering muzzles, and the smoking air became filled with exploding teeth and claws. The oak toads spewed poisonous juice from their eyes that burned up the remaining rats before they could escape. The air was full of sounds and smells of death. A decapitated rat vibrated and melted into the ground with a strange bubbling noise. A frog was missing both arms, and the bite marks of the rat could clearly be seen in a pattern of arches and moons. Hair and bones dangled on fire from the vines. A putrid pool of congealing blood smoked and steamed like a train's whistle. Those frogs and gals that weren't dead celebrated with cups of pudding and extra dry sherry. The ape bear had been hit in the head by shell fragments, but was still able to make a victory speech.
One more.